You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Let's fire it up.
This is the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray.
So this episode, we're a real podcast now.
It's official. It looks
It's official,
real.
and we're real because we have a sponsor.
That's right. We finally have a sponsor.
Like all good podcasts, we have a sponsor, and today's sponsor is Petra Burlington. Many of you folks in the community may know Petra. It's a super cool space. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Petra, Petra Burlington is a space dedicated to the freedom and success of creative freelancers and entrepreneurs. The folks at Petra encourage members to utilize their space to create, network, and sell, all while achieving their professional goals. They offer several flexible workspace options to suit anybody's business needs. They have memberships, space rentals, events, workshops, day passes. It's a great co-working space.
Oh, it definitely vibes.
Yeah, they got cubicles, conference rooms, and they even had like an old Nintendo, I think I saw over there.
Yeah.
So if you're in the middle of the workday and you need to get your Mario fix, plug that in and enroll. So we have a sponsor, and we have
a very special guest today too. So as you can see, we're at Petra, recording here. So we're on the road again for, I think this is our third episode in a row that we're on the road, which is pretty cool. But we got a very special guest today. It's Mr. Seneca Rogers. I think most of Alamance County knows him. I mean, he is in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
He's
Mr.
Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
He's another Alamance hometown hero. And I got to meet Seneca Rogers a few years ago. And when I first met him, I just knew we totally were going to vibe and click together, and he was somebody that I needed to hold close because he has his pulse on Alamance County. Mm-hmm. And now Mr. Rogers is also a school board member for Alamance Burlington School System.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, there it is. So Seneca, great to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, great to be here with you guys. You know, been watching the podcast, enjoying it, loving what y'all doing. So appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I think, one of the things we really just need to go ahead and lay out there for people. Mm-hmm. We, in Alamance County, we've been talking about it on our podcast for a couple weeks now, that, the school system and how people see the school board and the issues that we have within our schools. I have a feeling that people don't really know what school board members do and what power they hold. Mm-hmm. So can you just kind of explain a little bit about what is a school board, what kind of power you do hold, what do you do?
And just to add to that, what are some misconceptions? I'm sure you get calls or emails and people accusing you of doing things or wanting you to do things, and you're like, that's not in my job description.
Right. Yep. So as far as being a school board member and what the school board does, the school board is, of course, elected officials. They're elected by the community. It is a nonpartisan board. Well, our board is in Alamance County. There are some across the state that have become partisan boards. But for me personally, I feel like your school board should be a nonpartisan thing, even though our schools and everything ends up in a lot of political fights. I feel like we should stay as a nonpartisan board because at the end of the day, you should be a board that is pushing and fighting for all of your kids, all of your teachers, administrators, bus drivers, and the community.
No matter if your grandpappy was a Republican or Democrat.
Right. No matter of that at all. You should be leaving your political affiliations and all of that at the door to truly fight for the schools.
Well, I mean, I think you have your affiliations, but in our last podcast, we kind of talked, we talked to Justice Earls, and I think it's trying to leave your biases at the door because it is political. Right? We can't get away from that.
Yeah, because, you're still going to get pulled into some of that, but also your school board, they actually hire your superintendent. That's a misconception.
Okay. Yeah.
Some people think that the superintendent in some places is elected. No, the school board actually hires your superintendent. They're the ones who are the boss of the superintendent. Now, your superintendent can be the face of your school system, but the school board actually hires the superintendent.
The superintendent's like the
It's
CEO.
like CEO, right? Like
Yeah.
a company, right? Like you're the board, and
Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And then we're the ones who's going to pass policies and approve certain policies in the school system, codes of conduct and stuff like that. But our superintendent is supposed to hire people that then can implement those policies that we are approving.
Faculty and staff.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, we're going to be the ones to approve a budget. Now, with approving that budget, another misconception is the school system has any power over those funds.
Yeah, because y'all don't have taxing authority.
No, none at all. We don't have none of the taxing authority. So our county commissioners are a part of that pot of the funding that we get. Our state General Assembly is a part of the funding that you get for public schools, and also federal. But the two biggest pots are your state and county.
Okay.
And they're going to be the ones who have a major impact. And what I always tell people, your local school board are people who live right here in your community. They are very vital and important to what's going to happen with your school system and things, especially around certain policies. Also, another misconception, which I done seen out here lately, is some people think that the school board members are making a lot of money. Right. Because some people have even said things like that too.
Wait, so this was not getting on the school board. This was not part of your get rich quick scheme.
No way at all.
No, okay.
No way at all. I mean, I have a full-time job.
Right.
A lot of us have full-time jobs.
You didn't quit your day job
or
to go to the
things, or
ABSS.
even retired. I mean, I even had one of my coworkers, when they found out I was getting appointed, they were like, "Are you going to still be working for LabCorp?" And I was like, "Yes.
Yeah,
I still got bills to pay."
Right.
So yes.
How much does a school board member get paid in aliments?
$300 a month.
Oh, wow.
And that just went up a couple of years ago, because I think before that it was $100.
Wow.
And you could have meetings until midnight some nights.
Yeah, actually, my first meeting where I got sworn in, we did not get out of that meeting till 11:40, 11:45.
Wow.
I would wager, I mean, if it's $300 a month and you guys are having these, like 3-4 hour meetings, and maybe even longer than that sometimes, and you have the prep work going into that on an hour to hour basis, that does not come down. I mean, that's not a lot of money.
Well, and especially for all the ridicule
Right,
I'm
especially
sure
for all
your
the crap you got to put up with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to come along with
Sure.
it, right? Because especially being an elected official, being a public official, that's going to come along with it. Also, we're a part of various committees through the community, from Recreation and Parks, DARE. The committee that I'm on is with the Alamance Partnership for Children, who deals with early childhood development, which I'm very excited about joining in that and seeing what everything they do. So we have the committee. Then also we do trainings that we have to go through to continue to be better board members, but also staying up to date on what things are getting implemented from your state board of education and the Department of Public Instruction too.
Give me an example of one of those trainings. Are they it's like a monthly thing, a quarterly thing? Y'all all take a field trip somewhere together?
Yeah, sometimes
do a ropes course.
Yeah, no, it's nothing like that. Like sometimes they can be quarterly.
Okay.
And it's usually around like certain things on new implementations that might be happening with boards, new regulations to what boards can do and stuff. And then also learning what the DPI is approving as far as curriculums, because us locally, we cannot decide on the curriculum.
Okay.
That is decided from your state.
That must be
really?
another big. That's something that I honestly did not know.
Yeah, because I know running in 2022, a lot of people was talking about, well, we need for y'all to not allow for this to be a part of the curriculum. The curriculum is set by your state DPI.
Right. And you're talking about CRT, right? Like we had a lot of people come to our school board at the time saying you can't let CRT into our school. And so another misconception of our community thinking the school, and you weren't on the school board at the time, had control of what if CRT was going to, whatever this boogeyman is, was going to be put into our school. But they don't, you're saying they don't have the authority?
No, we don't have the authority. Like we can have, we can be creative in means of what we implement as far as what the standard curriculum is. Like they can say you're supposed to have a history course and everything. And so your history course can be the history of Alamance County.
How that's executed.
Yeah, that can
have more.
That can be one of those courses also. So
you and Quinn go back further than you and I do, but I met you, well, person to person in 2022. But I knew you before that, just seeing your name around the community, because you ran in 20, was it 20? Gosh, when was the first time you ran? What year?
2020.
2020, yeah. So I saw your name on all the campaign signs. And I've said this before. I respect anybody who wants to run for school board because it is just as difficult, if not more difficult, than any other job in local government and local public service. But it's
one of the two county-wide positions.
For sure. But I think it is such a thankless job in many cases. So I when we met and I saw that you were running again for school board. That really that piqued my interest, and then to learn that not only were you running for school board a second time after not making it the first time, but you kept showing up to the meetings.
Yeah.
Right. So tell our audience when you started going to school board meetings, and this is just a number that it's unbelievable. How many meetings have you missed since you started attending meetings? Not as a board member, but just as a member of the community who wanted to see what was going on.
Yeah, probably in-person meetings since 2018. I've only missed 2 meetings in person.
That's insane.
Like, of course, during the COVID time, they could not have them in person, so I was just watching them online and stuff. But yeah, as far as in-person meetings, probably only 2 meetings.
Wow.
Because, I started going to the meetings because I wanted to understand and know what our school boards was doing.
That was my next question. Was like, what got you there in the first place?
Yeah, especially when they first started talking about the redistricting.
Okay.
And I remember going to a meeting in 2016 over at Cummins, and they started talking about the redistricting, and it was some folks who got up and made public comments over there who, in the redistricting plan, it was going to take some kids from Cummings, some kids from Williams. They were going to be shifted around because Cummins and Graham were going to become basically specialty type schools.
Right.
Cummins was going to be a school of the arts. Graham was going to be more of like a trade type of school, and that was going to be their focuses. So then anyone in the county would be able to go to those schools. So then anybody who wanted to stay traditional high schools with the new high school that was going to get built, they were going to have to.
This is Southeast?
Yeah, Southeast was the new high school that was getting built. So they were going to have to move the students all around. So a couple of people who got up and, they were talking about Cummins kids, they were talking about Williams kids, and some of the Graham's kids. Folks got up and said, well, I don't want those kids at my school.
I don't want those kids.
Right.
And we know what they're
Yeah,
saying.
what does that mean?
Right.
Yeah, so they were like, they didn't want those kids at their school. And so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, as a Cummins graduate, as a person who grew up here in Alamance County and in East Burlington, I was always one of those kids. So then that's when it started piquing my interest. Like, I need to come to more of these meetings.
Yeah.
I need to hear what the school board is doing, what public comments are being said, and get a better understanding. So then I can be a person who can advocate for people who are not coming and feel like they haven't been heard.
Right.
I didn't at first think about running for the school board because to me, it was easier just being in the background and advocating to people that way and letting them know.
Like the importance of showing up to a meeting, emailing your school board, making sure you're voting.
Right. All of those things. I was fine just doing those things. And then I had a conversation with my wife, and she was like, you're always going to the meetings. You're telling everybody to do all of this. She was like, you say all the time that somebody needs to run. Somebody needs to represent these folks who feel like they're not being heard. Somebody needs to be that person. She was like, who are you waiting on?
If not you, then who?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Hard
so,
to argue with that.
Right. So then I was like, well, it made me nervous because Quinn, you're an elected official. Whenever you run, you're putting yourself out there.
And your family out there, and anything that, if there is a skeleton in the closet, you worry about that coming out. You worry about people just tarnishing your name, your reputation, everything you've built. So it's definitely, for me, I'm just a little municipality. You were a county-wide run. And, I remember last year when you were running, and, your slogan is, we are the neighborhood.
Yes.
And people constantly that were not supporters of you kept on saying, like, we need people that are going to support more than just their neighborhood. again, using racism as there's this black guy who's running. He's saying, we're the neighborhood, and they're only thinking that this person is only going to support East Burlington. And you have shown that we are the neighborhood. It's just a new age of this is Alamance County. We are a community. It's not just for those kids.
Right.
You're for everybody's kid. And it's scary putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it is. And I appreciate you talking about the We Are the Neighborhood thing, because for me, it was a new era way of talking about our community and letting everybody understand, like, we are truly in this together. Like, everyone from Elon to Pleasant Grove to wherever, we need all of y'all engaged in being a part of this so we can make this better ourselves. Right. And that was part of the reason too why I like to show up so many places, because the issue of a person who's in Graham is possibly not going to be the same thing as somebody in Elon.
And it shouldn't be, right? I mean, we live different places.
Right. And so I want to learn from everyone, but then also I want to be out there supporting what is happening in the community. And I always say that I want to be a person who I would want to support. And people who I want to support are those folks who are visible, folks who you can see in your Walmart, but then you can catch them at your church, or you can catch them at a local recreation basketball game or anything where people can actually come up, talk to you, shake your hand and stuff.
And what you just said has nothing to do with partisan politics.
No.
You know, like I mean, that just all it comes down to is being engaged in the community where you live. Like, I will always have a lot of respect for one of your fellow board members, Dan Engel. We probably have fairly different voting records when it comes to, you know, what we do when we go into the voting booth. But when I was growing up and in 4-H, Dan Engel was always coming to stuff.
Right.
You know, and like you would run into him like out in the community at different events and things, and it made you really feel like, you know what, we are all on the same team, right? This is we are the neighborhood. And it's also cool to see that slogan take off, you know, to see a slogan actually mean something, right? A lot of times campaign slogans and kind of the brand that people build their political identity around, it seems a little bit like a shtick or kind of a persona, but we are the neighborhood, that phrase, that idea has a lot of currency. Yeah. And I mean, it means something to a lot of people. And for me, it has been really cool to see that idea become something tangible. Yeah. And so. Yeah.
I mean, we got a celebrity here. It's pretty wild.
Well, so the Mr. Rogers thing. When did people start? Calling you? I'm sure people have called you Mr. Rogers because that is your surname. But like now you're Mr. Rogers, right?
Yeah. Like that piece of it is still a little bit wild.
Yeah. I think that's a hat you wear pretty uncomfortably. It seems like.
Yeah. Like it's funny because even folks now who's done known me for years, they be like, "So how should I address you? Like, how should I talk to you now?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Just talk to me how you're going to normally talk to me." But it seemed like in that 2020 race, even though dealing with COVID. And still, when stuff started opening up a little bit and you were able to do things, that's after that race is when it seemed like after that election period, even though I didn't win, it seemed like that's when folks started to understand the whole we are the neighborhood and started being like, it seems like we have our own local Mr. Rogers.
And you demonstrated it, right? You weren't just saying we are the neighborhood on social media. You were actually in the neighborhood. People that didn't agree with you still saw you because you didn't stop. And I don't think you did that to get elected or if that was part of the strategy of the campaign. I think you did that because that is you. Yeah. And I say that because I have seen you do this and demonstrate that I'm not just doing this for clout. I'm not just doing this. It's because you genuinely care about the neighborhood.
I mean, you follow the local high school sports like it's ESPN, right?
God, it's
tell the audience about, folks may not know that side of Seneca Rogers.
Yep. So I do post weekly during football season. It's my Friday Night Lights post, and I give you a breakdown of what games are happening that week. And sometimes I throw in a little summary of what's been happening with the teams. Also, I expanded over to our JV football teams and our middle school because we have all of that happening. And then usually on Saturdays, I'll give you a recap of who won what games and how it went. And what I've done over these past 3 to 4 years is go to a game every Friday.
Yeah.
And usually making sure that I check out every team that we have in the county. And I'll even go to a couple of our middle school games. And now we're in basketball season, so I have what I call the hardwood highlights. And that's same
great.
thing.
I love that.
Where I'm doing.
That's a podcast.
We're a fan of alliterations here.
We are, yeah.
Yeah, so I figured y'all would like that one.
Absolutely.
You know, so, and it's a similar thing too, just following what's happening with our basketball teams from our high school, JV, and our middle school teams, and listing out what's happening there, giving recaps on it, and things like that, because some of the people have even came up to me and said, I appreciate you making those posts, so now I know who's playing. And now I'm showing up to some of the games because you're making me excited for getting to the games.
Keeping the neighborhood plugged in is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Giving people a sense of belonging. And if it's through recapping sports, if it's talking politics, if it's just, picking up, a couple Sundays ago, you came with me and we fed people.
Yeah.
We did a bunch. And that's the type of shit that local communities need. They need leaders that are going to walk the walk and keep people engaged, and you do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's important. I feel like that gets lost with a lot of elected officials.
Well, even another example. We're just stroking this ego over here of his.
Don't do that.
He ain't got no ego. We don't want to see anything grow.
Don't worry, Seneca. The next 10 minutes, we're just going to criticize you. We're just
it's coming
fine.
in. But so you just newly got appointed to the board, and I follow all the board members. Right? They all have their social medias. One of the first things you did was you posted the agenda for the neighborhood to see. Anybody can get the agenda. You can go to the school board's website and download it. But that takes work.
God, that takes
you put it out there for everybody to see, and I just it started blowing up. People were thanking you. That's what we need. If people want to be engaged, it's hard.
Right.
And as local leaders and elected officials, I think it's our duty to help our constituents stay more engaged, and just doing that simple task of sharing the agenda is something that the community, I'm grateful for, and I think it's going to benefit our community seeing that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that it gets more people to come to the meetings, because I want more people to come. But even if you can't make it, that you're watching it on live stream and that you're engaged, and then you're sending in questions.
Right.
Because people always have a bunch of questions about stuff, and we need to see those questions as a board and even as our administrators too.
Before action is taken.
Yeah, exactly. So that's important, and that's one of the things I'm going to continue to do, is continue to put them out there and hoping it gets as much of a following as like my sports stuff gets.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know more, about why you champion public schools specifically. Education as a topic is something everybody can get behind.
Right.
But when it comes down to like public schools, not everybody is on that team. But that's the team you play for, right? So why champion public schools as opposed to other schools, private schools, charter schools, right? I'm curious why you went there.
I mean, I can give you the whole spiel that, a lot of these folks say, oh, I'm a product of public education.
That's exactly what I thought you were about to do.
And everything like that.
Which you are.
I mean, I am a product of it, but it's bigger than that. Public schools are just the same mirror of what your community looks like. It's the opportunity for our kids to go to schools with people who might not have the same backgrounds or different things happening in their lives that they do, but it gives them the opportunity to meet them and build those friendships and relationships. So that is very important to me for always championing for public education, because one of my best friends growing up in in elementary through middle school was Tim Sutton II. His dad was County Commissioner Tim Sutton.
Yeah.
Now, hey.
Stark differences of political ideology.
Right. His dad was a person who took me to my first ever college football game.
Wait, Tim Sutton took you to your first college football. Okay, wow.
Yes, to go see the Clemson Tigers. They were big Clemson fans.
Yeah.
He took me to a game. Him and my parents had a cool relationship for me to be able to do that. But that's what I'm saying. That's what you're going to get in public schools.
In every cafeteria and classroom in a public school, you have a microcosm
Yeah.
of the community.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always championing and advocating for our public schools, because that's our community.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing that is interesting. Those years you spend in middle school, high school, I mean, those are like, there's a lot I don't remember about my life. I remember who was popular in ninth grade.
Yeah.
I remember who, the teachers who I dreaded going to their class. And I remember the teachers who I couldn't wait to go to their class, right?
Right.
In terms of the people you are serving, serving young people, you're having an outsized impact because that's a formative time in their lives.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're going to remember those decisions. They're going to remember, when they got the funding for that new gym, right? They're going to remember. I mean, there are a lot of kids, unfortunately, and this may be one of the reasons you joined in to do public service. There are a lot of kids in this community who unfortunately aren't going to have great memories right now, right? Because of the mold and because of
we don't have a playground to play on,
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is another thing to think about is that when you work with kids in any form, as a kid, just young people, whether you're an educator, a staff member at the school, or a school board member, you're having an outsized impact because that's a time in people's lives that it's going to be remembered forever.
Yep, definitely.
Well, I think we're coming up on time here,
Okay.
and I don't think we would be remiss to say that he's going to be on the ballot this year,
Right.
in
Yep.
2024. So you want to say a little about this?
Yep. So definitely, I'm on the ballot this year in 2024. I'll try to clear up some confusion with folks, because some folks have been confused about that, because they're like, hey, you just got appointed.
got on the school board.
What do you mean that you're on the ballot? So the seat that I took was a previous board member that was on there so long, great board member, Patsy Simpson. And her term is up in 2024. So the seat that I'm taking, I have to run for so I can get it for 4 years. We're just getting started.
That's right.
We're just getting started. So I need that time to really get in there, to really work, to really continue to build this neighborhood
And stand
within
on
our school
business.
system, and continue always to stand on business. Some people might not know what that means, but just watch me, because I'm going to continue to stand on business every day. So when you're hitting that ballot box in November, mid-October for early voting, make sure that you do that vote for the neighborhood and give Seneca Rogers 4 years to do the work.
Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on to talk about, today we had school board member Seneca Rogers. I'm sure we'll have candidate Seneca Rogers back at some point to make your pitch then. Seneca, thank you so much for coming on.
man,
Appreciate you guys so much. Thank y'all.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll see you soon.
All right. Talk
Bye,
to y'all
guys.
later.